So I did an experiment to test Joe Dispenza's manifestation methods with only one goal in mind, and it was to manifest $100,000. Not to buy a Ferrari or anything like that, but to actually prove to myself that this stuff actually works and that I didn't just get lucky manifesting my way out of 6 figures worth of debt. And so I got the money, but that didn't ended up being the least interesting thing about this entire experiment. The real gold was discovering that manifestation has absolutely nothing to do with with what most people think it does. And have been down this manifestation spirituality rabbit hole for about 8 years now, 10 years. I know brain and heart coherence. I understand elevated emotions. I can explain the quantum field. Whatever. I could recite it all in my sleep, but I didn't want to just be a person that was talking about it, but I needed to put this to the test with something that I couldn't bullshit myself about. So I documented everything. The initial high when I thought I had it all figured out, and there was a moment about a month in when nothing was happening. That was a moment when I wanted to just throw everything out, stop meditating altogether. I was pissed at Joe. I was annoyed at myself. I was annoyed at the universe, and there was a breakthrough that actually changed everything as well. But what completely shattered my understanding was that the money didn't start showing up when I, perfected my mental rehearsals or when I finally felt enough gratitude. But it happened when I experienced what I can only describe as the death of my identity, or the death of my old self. The version of me who started that experiment, he was unrecognizable. That version of me just completely disappeared. And so what I want to say is manifestation isn't something that we do, but it's something that we stop blocking. And so our current identity is literally the barrier between us and what we want. But I want to get into that, explain that in much deeper. Because most people try to manifest while still being the person who doesn't have what they want, like I did at the beginning. That is like trying to drive forward while keeping your foot on the brake or having the handbrake up. And so I want to break down exactly what happened, the physical symptoms that I received as well, the random body aches, the 3 a.m. panic attacks, just waking up in complete chaos, and how my relationships actually completely transformed as my frequency started to shift, and the weird ways the $100,000 started to appear. And it wasn't how I mentally rehearsed it at all. That is the craziest bit. So I will also want to tell you what to do if I had to start over again, because Joe's methods work, but only when you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. So let's get to it. Every morning, I would sit there for an hour, eyes closed with my blindfolds on, trying to manifest $100,000 while my nervous system was literally in survival mode because, well, I was obsessing about my bank account and my business as well. And obviously I had some, things to deal with in my personal life as well. So that was the first mistake I was making. I was meditating from a place of lack and from a place of survival emotions. That is literally like trying to meditate while your body is still carrying the stress about money. Tense shoulders, tight jaw, shallow breathing. I just couldn't relax. I couldn't get myself to be in the present moment. Okay? I would think to myself during meditation, like, it's fine. I'm visualizing abundance, so I'm doing something right. I was wrong. I was so wrong. That's like saying I'm going to visualize having a six-pack, like while eating my fourth donut. Right? The universe is looking at us, looking at me like, bro, what are you doing? And so when we are in survival mode, our brain is literally designed to focus on problems, threats. And if you're dealing something within your personal life, that is what you're purely going to focus on. So when I'm sitting down to try to manifest, my brain is like, whoa, hold up. Dude, your business is like failing. Like, what if this experiment fails as well? You know what I mean? My brain was that friend at the party who keeps reminding everyone that they have work tomorrow. You know what I mean? The party pooper. And so the first 21 days, I was reinforcing this pattern every single day. 1 hour of high quality survival mode meditation. Oh my God, that is like going to the gym and doing bicep curls for your anxiety. So what I was doing during meditation was getting really good at being anxious. while thinking I was becoming abundant. Okay, you know what I mean? I wasn't manifesting money, I was manifesting new and creative ways to stress out about money. And so when I mentally rehearsed, I felt separate to what I'm mentally rehearsing. And so what I learned to manifest effectively is I had to first regulate my nervous system. That meant taking 10 minutes before my actual meditation to do coherent breathing, right? 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, until my body actually felt relaxed and safe to just be in the present moment. And I know that sounds basic. Your mind's probably like, nah, it's gotta be more complicated than that. But I promise you, that is one thing that changed everything. Because once your nervous system is back to homeostasis, rest, recovery, rejuvenation, your brain can actually start accessing creative, abundant states, which what we're trying to cultivate, right? That's like having, trying to have a deep conversation with someone while being chased by a bear. It's not going to happen until you stop running. So that's the first mistake. Regulate your nervous system. Second mistake that I made was even more sneaky. I was focusing on what I didn't want or didn't have instead of embodying what I wanted to become. Okay? So now that I look back on my meditation journal, I noticed something. Every intention I had written was focused on the absence of something. I want to be debt free. I want to stop worrying about money. I don't want to feel stressed when I check my bank account. You know what I mean? Can you see what the problem was? Every single of one of my intentions was focused on the absence of something negative. That is, how do I describe this? That is like going on a first date and you're spending the whole time with your date talking about how you hated your ex, right? Okay, my ex was, now I'm looking for someone who doesn't cheat, who doesn't lie, who doesn't leave the dirty dishes in the sink. You know what I mean? And your date is texting their friend under the table. They're like, SOS, get me out of here. This guy is crazy. That's what it's like. So you're just listening. I was listing everything I didn't want. And my subconscious mind doesn't process negatives. When I say I don't want to be broke or I don't want to be in debt, my subconscious mind hears broke, debt. Okay, got it. More broke coming up, more debt coming up. Okay? And that's what I was doing. That is when I started understanding what a clear intention was. So, there I was every morning, meditating on all the things that I didn't want. 1 hour of high quality focus on debt. Oh my God. More focus on financial stress and lack. I was basically manifesting in reverse. Okay? That is like ordering at a restaurant and telling the waiter everything you don't want to eat. Okay? I don't want the fish. I don't want the steak. And the waiter's there like, this guy's crazy. What do you want? You know what I mean? And then the kitchen is sending you empty plates because technically that's on your I don't want to eat list. I hope that made sense. So here's how I fixed it. I wrote down every intention, flipped. So instead of using the language I want to be debt free, I wrote I am financially abundant and manage money with ease. Okay? Instead of I don't want to worry about money, it became I am calm and confident in my financial decisions. See the difference there? And this is where it gets really deep because you can't just change the words. You have to change the feeling. You have to feel those intentions with elevated emotions, right? So it's not enough to say the actual words itself, but feel them in your body. So that is like sending a text message with no cellular service, right? The words are there, but they're not going anywhere. But that might take some time. So that's why nervous system regulation is so crucial. Because for me, abundance felt like expansion in my chest, relaxed shoulders, just ease and flow. And I had to cultivate that feeling and then attach my intentions to it. Okay? That is the second mistake. The third mistake, and this one's going to blow your mind, but it's counterintuitive, was that I was trying way too hard. This all happened like nearly in the same week, in the same time frame, around a month in. And there was nothing significant that had happened financially yet when I was doing this experiment. But I was getting so frustrated. That's what was happening. I doubled down. I did an extra meditation. I visualized harder. And I was meditating with the same energy that I used to deadlift at the gym. And I caught myself, like even just reading my notes before I made this video, I caught myself trying too hard to force an outcome. And it came from a place of lack, a state of lack. I was the spiritual equivalent of the guy at the bar at around 1:45 a.m., desperately trying to find someone to go home with. You know what I mean? Come on, universe, I'm begging you. Give me just one manifestation. Please, please. I'll call you tomorrow. I promise to call you tomorrow. Oh my God. That is similar to trying to fall asleep by thinking really hard about falling asleep. You know what I mean? The harder you try to fall asleep, the harder it is for you to fall asleep because we're not relaxed. We can't relax. And so what I learned from this experiment is that the universe responds to our state of being, not our state of trying. So when we are trying to manifest something, we are operating from the assumption that we don't have it. And so when you change it from being the person who already has it, you're operating from a completely different frequency. And it's the difference between the frequency of wanting and the frequency of having. Two completely different energetic signatures. And so it is the same as between the guy who tells everyone that he's an entrepreneur versus the guy who's actually running a successful business. Okay? One of them is trying to convince you that they are. The other doesn't need to because they are just in it, working on their business. So here's what I did. Instead of trying to manifest $100,000, I started being the person who already had $100,000. I had to change how I sat in Zoom meetings, how I worked on my business, how I breathed, right? More relaxed breathing instead of shallow, how I felt in my body, how I walked. I had to change all of that because the person with $100,000 already isn't trying to get anything. I'm just being myself. If I already had $100,000, I would be more relaxed. I wouldn't be stressed about a $50 expense. And I would be making decisions differently, right? I wouldn't be checking my bank account constantly like I am checking my ex's Instagram story. Just joking. Hope she's not watching. And so the shift from doing that was huge. So remember that one. Mistake number 4. This one almost kept me stuck forever. And I was meditating on outcomes instead of identity. Okay? I was still focusing on, I want $100,000 in my bank account. Or, I want to complete this experiment successfully, so give me my $100,000, right? All my outcomes are all external things, right? But what I realized is we don't get what we want, we get who we are. And please let that sink in for a moment. You don't get what you want, but you get who you are. And so, that is why the guy with the billionaire mindset wears t-shirts, right? And he's usually looking like the brokest guy in the room. Like, he's just it. And so if my identity was struggling person trying to manifest money, guess what? I would keep struggling no matter how hard I meditated on the success of that $100,000. However, and so if my identity is based on the person who is also bad with money, the universe is going to continue to match that identity. So here's how I changed it. Instead of meditating on having $100,000, I started meditating on being the type of person who naturally attracts and manages money well, who has an abundance of opportunities coming to him, right? It is the difference between wanting to be tall and being tall. If you are tall, you don't just think about being tall, you're just tall. You're moving through the world as a tall person. You don't wake up every morning saying, okay, today I'm going to be so tall. You just are tall, okay? And there was this one meditation where something just clicked. And instead of visualizing money in my bank account, I asked myself, okay, who is someone who is actually financially abundant? How do they wake up in the morning? How do they make decisions? How do they carry themselves? What do they think about themselves? How do they feel about themselves, right? So that abundant person doesn't check their bank account with anxiety. They don't stress about bills. They're actually grateful for their bills because they are exchanging energy. They are contributing to the company that they're paying a bill to. If I get a parking ticket for $100, don't worry, right? This is the most important part for me. As a business owner, I had to make place from a place of abundance instead of lack. Focus on identity. The fifth and final mistake that I was making was expecting immediate results and then giving up when I didn't see them. All right? Expecting immediate results and giving up when I didn't see them. About 2 months in, I had only manifested about $12,000 through channels that I had never expected. A tax refund in March. That's so weird. And there was a small investment that paid off, but nowhere near my $100,000 goal. And so I was ready to call off the experiment and write it off as a failure, right? And so I was like that person who goes to the gym once, doesn't look like Thor, and I'm like, you know what? This is all bullshit. Where's my abs? That was like me. And then I remembered one of Joe's talks, and it's that neuroplasticity takes time. And so what I was doing is I was literally changing my neural pathways that have been carved by years or even decades of my old patterns of thinking. And my old patterns of thinking was struggling a lot with money, right? Probably inherited from my parents. And so our old patterns of thinking are like highways that have been traveled on for years. And so creating a new neural pathway is like creating a new trail through thick forest, right? At first, there's barely any visibility. You can't even go through it. Well, you can go through it, but it's going to be hard. And so you have to consciously choose to walk that path over and over again until that forest becomes a highway. Okay? It's like trying to get your friend who has been at the same bar their entire life and trying to get them to a new bar, to try a new bar. You got to be really persistent to get them to try a new bar. Okay? But, okay, here's where everything changed, and listen carefully. It came when I stopped looking for it outside of me and started being immersed with my internal shifts. All right? Being immersed with my internal shifts. That is when I realized I wasn't waking up with anxiety anymore. I wasn't checking my bank account obsessively. I was making decisions from a calmer, more centered place. I wasn't stress eating an entire pizza while scrolling through Instagram, looking at people who seem to have their lives together. Okay? I would call that a win. I wasn't binge watching on YouTube. I wasn't looking for ways or like the next information that will save me. And so by around, I think, 2 months and a half, something weird started happening. And I noticed that people began to treat me differently. I started getting synchronicities and clients referring me to someone who needed exactly what I had to offer. And so about 3 months in, I manifested another $35,000. Still not my goal, but there was momentum that was building, right? I was doing something right. This was the breadcrumbs from the universe. And so I was no longer meditating to get something, but I was meditating to reinforce who I had become, or who I'm interchanging and becoming still, like clicking it in. And so there was one moment where I received a call for a business opportunity that I had completely forgotten about. And it was an investment that I made 2 years ago that I had written off as a loss because whatever. And it was being accrued. And that small stake was now worth $68,000. Now, combined with my previous $35,000 win, I had exceeded my goal of $100,000. But the crazy part, listen to this. The crazy part was when I got that opportunity, I felt nothing. Like no excitement, no validation, no I told you so moment, no yay. So that person who was trying to manifest $100,000 no longer existed. And so the weird thing in between was my dreams in all of this. I had vivid dreams where I was literally watching my old self from a distance, and I don't know, there was just like little flashbacks, and it felt like I was observing that character in a movie. Now, my relationships also transformed in an unexpected way as a kind of like a bonus. And people who were creating drama in my life or who were more dramatic just started drifting away. And then I had new people form, new relationships form, people who were in a higher frequency. So something that I didn't consciously did, but it happened automatically because I was shifting my frequency. And so I stopped drinking, and then I realized that I started hanging out. I enjoyed hanging out with certain people, and my old drinking buddies, I just didn't match their energy anymore. But the $100,000 I manifested, it was there. But the initial transformation the initial transformation in me, that was the real miracle, not the money. I realized that the money was just a symbol for something deeper. And it wasn't about the dollars, it was about who I had become to allow that abundance into my life. And so the evidence wasn't in my bank account, but in how I now respond to challenges. When a client cancels a project that would have paid, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000, my old self would have panicked like, oh my God, I need to start sending out emails. I need to do more client outreach now, right? I need to replace that client. That's it. I would think like, that's it, I'm going to be homeless. But now, instead, I feel complete peace because I know that something better is about to come. And it did, in ways that it was easy and normal for me. Like easy and normal ways for opportunities to flow in. Okay. Even my health improved. There was like a tension I carried in my shoulders just disappeared. I had a pain in my lower back for years and it just disappeared. I started sleeping better. My digestion improved. It was like my body was finally getting the message that it was finally safe to thrive. Not just to survive, but thrive. And so I stopped waking up in the middle of the night for no reasons at all. But the most surprising thing was how manifestation became automatic rather than forced. And even till this day, that still remains. Just as long as I continue to do my meditations and not go back to my old self, right? Okay, I'm gonna be straightforward. There have been times where I did go back to my old self, but I just picked myself back up and went back in. And I could have never planned or predicted some of these opportunities. Like some of the things that I try to create now or like create now come to me in about 2 to 3 days. And so you really have to listen to this because the money didn't come in how I mentally rehearsed it in my meditations. I had imagined new clients coming in, a speaking gig, winning the lottery. Yes, I mentally rehearsed winning the lottery, but it didn't happen like that. Instead, it came in ways that I would have never even thought of, right? My forgotten investment, a referral from someone, from an old client who I hadn't spoken to in years, opportunities that I had specific skills for that made me perfect for that opportunity. So that's when I learned that's what it means to surrender the how and trust that the infinite possibilities of the quantum field has it all figured out. The universe is way more creative than me. It has way more creative ways to deliver what I want than my limited mind, my limited imagination can come up with. This intelligence, think of it as the best view in the house, and it can see the terrain, it can see the best possible opportunities, experiences, and outcomes for us. However, I was letting my limited mind get in the way, trying to predict that specific outcome. Oh my God, I'm not getting any new clients. I'm not reaching that $100,000, right? No bueno. That is no bueno. Now, I know this can happen much more faster, and you don't need about 90 days for this to do the same thing that I did. You just have to follow the formula. So I want to ask you, are you meditating from a frequency of lack or abundance? Are you meditating from survival emotions? Okay? Are you focusing on what you don't have or what you don't want instead of focusing on who you want to become? Are you trying to force outcomes or allowing them to unfold naturally? Are you focusing on external results or internal identity? And are you expecting overnight miracles or trusting the process? And if you answered honestly, you probably found at least one area where you're making the same mistake that I made. But don't beat yourself up, okay? Don't beat yourself up. I spent more than a month doing it wrong before I figured it out. So write this down. Here's a simple test that you can do right now, see if you're manifesting from the right frequency. All you have to do is close your eyes, okay? Let's test this out for yourself. Close your eyes and I want you to think about your desire. Think about what you want, maybe it's $100,000, and I want you to notice how it feels in your body. Is there tension? Is there anxiety? Is there a sense of desperation or grasping? Because if there is, that is lack. Okay, now switch it up. Imagine that you already have had this desire. It's already in your possession. Now, how does your body feel? Is there relaxation, ease, gratitude, calm, peace? Because if so, that's abundance. And so the gap between those two feelings is exactly what you need to bridge in your meditation practice. It is the difference between how you feel waiting for a first date versus hanging out with your best friend, okay? One is tense and full of expectations. The other is just more relaxed and natural. Like you can be yourself, okay? Based on my experiment, I have developed a framework and you can actually start using this today. So please write this down. First, regulate your nervous system, okay? Manifest second, spend about 5 to 10 minutes getting into coherence before you even begin your manifestation practice. Use coherent breathing, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, until your body physically relaxes. Feel safe. Do not try to manifest while your body thinks it's being chased by a tiger. Don't manifest in survival mode. Now, step number 2 is reframe your intentions. Write down your current intentions, then rewrite them in a positive, okay? Present tense language, focus on who you're becoming, not what you are escaping, okay? Instead of, I want to escape my 9-to-5 job, it is now going to be, I'm thriving in a work that fulfills me, or I love my purposeful business. Feel, don't force. This is the third one. Instead of trying harder, surrender deeper. Ask yourself, how would it feel if it was already done? All right, just relax and do that. Stop pushing a boulder uphill with your manifestations. That's all you need to do. Next one is identity over outcome. Spend 80% of your meditation being the person who naturally has what you want, and the 20% visualizing the specific outcome. Okay? Be the person who attracts $100,000, not the person desperately trying to manifest $100,000. See the difference? Good. Next is trust the timeline. Commit to a specific period, right? For me, it was 3 months. And refuse to judge the process until that time is complete. Okay, document everything. That's what I do. And detach from daily results. Okay? Stop seeing if it's already happening. Like, that was a big one for me. What would I do differently if I had to start over? Well, I would focus on the identity shift from day one. I wasted nearly half the time of the experiment trying to manifest from my old identity. However, the moment I focused on becoming someone new, everything accelerated. Everything accelerated. Because you've got to remember, manifestation isn't something that we do. It's something that we stop blocking. Because we're manifesting right now, moment to moment basis. However, your current identity is literally the barrier between you and what you want. If you're someone who's done all the work, read all the books, even went to retreats and even hired coaches, but still feel like you're hitting an invisible ceiling, here's what I need you to know. The real shift doesn't come from trying harder, but it comes from upgrading the identity and nervous system that actually run the show. Because that's what changed everything for clients like Tucker, Tanya, and Robertson. And if you want to see exactly how we broke those old patterns for good and how you can map out your own breakthrough, there is a link in the description that takes you straight to the details about my private mentorship. In there, you'll see how the process actually works and why it's different from everything else out there. So, if you are ready to stop circling the same problems and step into your next level, click on the link below in the description and let's see if it's a good fit. If it is, then let's talk.